Welcome to Lesson 4 in Coding for the Web. So in this lesson, we're going to start exploring HTML forms. This is where we start making our web pages interactive so that you can make changes to them as you're exploring the web page. This is what most of you think of when you think of elements on the World Wide Web. It's not just something that you read, it is actually something you interact with. There are special tags that can be used to create HTML form elements in any web page. These tags have different data types, and so we'll explore some of those. And then for your assignment today, we're going to make a form that we can use for your next lesson, which will be on functions and variables in JavaScript. So a form, of course, has HTML tags that are interactive elements, and you create these with special tags. The form data is sent to somewhere else. It's either sent to a JavaScript program or it's sent to another web page where it can be processed and analyzed. We aren't going to look at that type of data analysis. We're just going to look at the JavaScript analysis in the next lesson. When you design forms, it's important to consider what kind of data you need to get and make sure you create the correct form elements to match. So first of all, when you're making a form in HTML, you want to use, of course, the form tag. There's a begin form tag that has the angle brackets and the word form, and then the end form tag with a little slash. All of your form elements should be in between these tags. In general, all of the information that's grouped with a single submit button should be between those tags. If you have multiple submit buttons, then you might want multiple groups of form elements. You can use the ID and class attributes to style the form, and then you can style the form elements with CSS just like any other HTML form element. So let's start with the first kind of form element, and that's the text box. It's an easy kind of form to make. So the way that you make the form is with the tag input, and you'd put this tag in between your begin form and end form tags. The input tag here has several attributes. You have the type, and that's the type of data that this input is going to take. In this case, it's just text. You can see what it looks like down here, and you just get the little element that you can type in some short form text. The name and ID are not attributes that show up in the display, but they're used, of course, for styling it and identifying it. There's also the label tag, which is a really important one. The label tag allows you a space that you can attach a label to that form element, and importantly, if you click on that label, it activates the form element. So in the web page, if I clicked on the space that said your name, it would put my cursor in that text box. This can be really important for like mobile forms. So just in case you don't have the best fine motor skills and it's hard to tap right on that text box, if you tap on the label, it will still activate the text box. Also really important just for accessibility options. One last thing, line breaks, of course, are not included. They never are. So if you want there to be a line break after this text box, be sure you put the BR tag. So unless you want all of your form elements side by side, one after another on your web page, that BR tag is a really important one. Okay, next, there's numeric input. So just as with the text input, remember that was input type equals text. This is input type equals number. And number can also have other attributes, so you can decide what the appropriate range of numbers is. Value is the default value that's going to be in that input. Value is the default value for any kind of form element, so just remember the value attribute. It's really important. It shows up in JavaScript. Min and max are the smallest and biggest maximum allowable numbers. And then step is how much that number is going to change when you hit the little up and down arrows inside that form element. And then, of course, label is used to put a label in front of it, and when you tap on that label, it activates the text box. Notice this for attribute matches the ID of the form element. Next type of form element is radio buttons. This is a really fun type of form element. It's for multiple choice options where only one of the choices can be chosen. It's called radio buttons. The way that you create it is you'll create input type equals radio. And notice here that they all have the same name. So there's name equals great, or sorry, name equals feeling, name equals feeling, name equals feeling. So all of these radio buttons are going to be grouped together as the same multiple choice question. So it'll put the text, how are you feeling? and then each one of these is an input type radio that goes with the same name. The ID is a unique identifier specifically for that particular radio element, and then value is the value that it's going to be when it's chosen. Sorry. The label, of course, is really important because not only does it put text next to the radio button to label it, if you tap on the text, the radio button activates. So that's the radio button. Similar to the radio button, there's checkboxes. Checkboxes, you can see they're really similar in the way that they're styled, but these are square instead of little circles, and this is multiple select. You can make more than one choice in here. So it's just instead of type equals radio, you say type equals checkbox. Again, all of these have the same name because they're grouped in the same heading, but different unique IDs, and then the labels match the IDs. Capitalization counts, so if this is capital P pizza, this is also capital P pizza. One more form element is the pull-down menu, and this one's a little different because it doesn't have the input tag. It has a tag that says select. So under the select, we've got a name and an ID. In this case, I made them the same thing, but of course the for matches the ID, okay? And so if I tap on what is your favorite car, tap on the word, it would pull down the menu. Underneath the select tag, you can have option tags, and you'll see open option, end option, open option, end option, open option, end option, open, end, and then there's the end select. So it's nested, kind of like elements inside a table or something like that. And then you can see what it looks like in the actual HTML. So it sort of works like a radio button, similar functionality. It's a little more compact when it's all collapsed. You don't see all the choices until you pull down the menu. And then there's a button, which is one of the most important form elements because you're going to use this to submit your form. So commonly, you're going to have a single button that you use to click submit. You may find uses for other buttons too, and so we'll want to make sure we're very familiar with this form element. Super easy to do. You use the input tag again, and then this one is just type equals button, and value equals, that's also going to be the text that shows up on the button itself. Okay, so in the next lesson, you're going to learn how to use attributes inside this tag to link this button to a JavaScript program that will analyze the form. And there's many, many other form input types. If you go to these web pages that are linked in this little PowerPoint presentation, you can get more information on input types. This one shows you different types using the input tag. But there's also other HTML form elements like the select tag and more, and you can access those with this link. So feel free to explore and just see. You can see from these attributes here, you can do a file selector, send an email, you can select an image, select a month. So many different ways that you can do input types and just explore them and play around with them. For your assignment, you're going to go to your existing web page and you're going to add a form. Your forms should be set up so you can perform a math calculation. So for example, you might want to set up a form that says, what are the two legs of a right triangle? Leg 1, leg 2. And then maybe a blank to put your name or something like that. And then when you click submit, in the next lesson, we'll write a program that will take those two inputs and calculate the length of a hypotenuse of a right triangle. Or you can make two elements that ask you for the side lengths of a rectangle, and it'll calculate the area. So just pick a couple of inputs that you can do some math on, something numeric. Everything else in the form is totally up to you. Play around with it and be creative. If you want to see what the finished form looks like that I went over in this exercise, this is what it looks like in Visual Studio. The text is a little small, but you can see up there near the top, there is the form tag right here. And then if I scroll down, this is the end form tag, okay? And then inside there, here I've got the text input, radio buttons, check boxes. This is the select menu. This is a numeric input. And then lastly, there's a button to do submit. The button does nothing right now, but I can show what this form looks like all put together. And then if I scroll down, here's the form in the live web page. You can type text in this box. My name is Harold. I'm feeling great. Notice that this is a single select, either great, okay, or terrible, not more than one. but this one is multiple select, so I could pick pizza, ice cream, and French fries. I can choose my favorite car, and I can say how old I am. Okay, and the submit button again doesn't work yet, but we'll add that in the next lesson. Have fun with the assignment. I look forward to seeing you in lesson 5.